The Hamilton building always made people whisper, but that morning it was my mother-in-law who drew every stare. Margaret Wellington Pierce swept through the revolving doors like the place bowed to her. She didn't glance at the construction crew she despised, my crew, the same people she once reported for lowering property values. I adjusted my hard hat, watching her vanish into the private elevator I wasn't allowed to use, not even after marrying her daughter. She thought I was just a laborer. She thought she ruled this building. By the end of the day, she'd learn exactly who really owned it. The Hamilton building rose over the street like a polished monument to old Manhattan wealth, its Art Deco edges shining bright under the early sun. Even from across the avenue, the place carried that air of quiet authority, the kind that made people lower their voices without knowing why. I stood there for a moment, taking it in before the familiar clop-clop of expensive heels pulled my attention away. My mother-in-law, Margaret Wellington Pierce, swept through the brass revolving doors as though the whole building existed only to welcome her. Her red Lobaltons flashed like warning lights, and she didn't spare even a blink for the construction crew working on the West Wing renovation. My crew, the one she pretended didn't exist. Mr. Chase, my foreman Diego, called from behind me, shifting his clipboard. Inspection teams here for the 42nd floor. Thanks, Diego. I adjusted my hard hat and unfolded the building plans. And remember, it's just Jack. Mr. Chase was my father. Try telling that to Mrs. Wellington Pierce, Diego muttered. Yesterday, she reported. 2 guys to security for using the main entrance. Said they were unwashed laborers. I smirked. Did she now? Said we were lowering property values just by being visible. Diego shook his head in disbelief. Still can't believe your wife comes from that family. Neither can they, I said, watching Margaret vanish into her private elevator, the same elevator I wasn't allowed to use even after 2 years of marriage to her daughter Claire. My wife worked nights as a trauma surgeon at Mount Sinai, which to her mother was almost as shocking as crime. Women in the Wellington Pierce bloodline weren't supposed to work. And if they insisted on working, they were certainly not supposed to set foot in a public hospital. The fact that she married someone she saw as a common laborer was simply the final disaster. Jack Claire's voice cut through the steady noise of morning traffic. She walked up still wearing her scrubs, hair slightly messy, eyes tired, but bright. Mom called me 6 times already. Something about you scheduling loud work during her garden club meeting. I kissed her without caring who was watching. The schedule was set months ago. Every resident got the notice. She never reads notices. Claire sighed. Says it's beneath her. She's threatening to call the board. Claire added, let her. I said, checking my watch. Actually, I need to head up to the penthouse level anyway. Wanna come see what's got her so upset? Claire hesitated. I'm not supposed to go up there without an invitation. Trust me, I said, taking her hand. Today you absolutely have an invitation. We took the service elevator, the only one I was ever allowed to use, up to the top floor. The Wellington Pierce penthouse filled the entire level, a fact Margaret proudly repeated at every dinner party she ever hosted. Thought Howard, the building's property manager, waited for us when we stepped out. Mr. Chase, everything's prepared. But Mrs. Wellington Pierce was extremely firm about postponing today's work. I'm sure she was, Howard. I nodded toward my crew as they began setting up equipment, but these structural improvements can't wait. Safety rules. You know how it is. What structural improvements? Claire asked, puzzled. The penthouse level was renovated last year. Actually, I pulled out a set of papers. According to the original building plans, the renovation missed some serious issues and the new owner wants them fixed right away. New owner? Claire blinked. But Mom said her family has controlled the building since it was built. That's what they believed, I said. Margaret's private elevator slid open then and she stormed out, her expression clouded with fury. What is the meaning of this? She snapped. I told the manager no work today, and why is she here? She pointed sharply at Claire. Hello to you too, Mother. Claire said. Howard stepped forward. As stated in the notices sent last month, these improvements are mandatory, the new building owner insisted. New owner? Margaret barked. What new owner? This building has belonged to our family for generations. My great-grandfather. Actually, I cut in. Your great-grandfather owned exactly 30%. The controlling interest belonged to his business partner, James Chase. Margaret went still. Chase, she whispered. As in my great-grandfather, I said, watching the shock settle under her perfect makeup. He passed his shares down quietly, generation to generation, while your family enjoyed believing they ran the whole place. No, Margaret breathed. We would have known. Not if James Chase told his heirs to stay silent until certain conditions were ignored, I said, pulling another document free. Conditions like, say, the Wellington Pierce family trying to block safety improvements because they clashed with a garden club meeting. Claire grabbed the papers with practiced precision. Jack, are you saying? I'm saying I told her that, while your mother treated me like an unwanted guest in her building, my family has actually owned 60% of it for 90 years. Margaret sank into an imported Italian chair. But, you're a construction worker. I'm a structural engineer with a master's from MIT, I corrected. And my great-grandfather required every heir to learn the business from the ground up before taking control. Every job. Claire stared. Wait, that's why you worked as a janitor last summer and maintenance the year before? I nodded. Had to finish every requirement before my dad would sign over control. Margaret's hands shook. But all the times I made you use the service elevator were exactly what my family needed to see. I said, proof that the Wellington Pierce family forgot. The partnership that built this place. Choosing pride over purpose. The garden club meeting, Margaret whispered. Will need to be rescheduled, I said firmly. These repairs are essential. You'd know that if you ever attended a board meeting yourself instead of sending a proxy. Claire was still absorbing everything, connecting each detail like she did with medical cases, the internships, the late classes, the heavy weeks of labor. I thought you were just passionate about your work. I am, I said gently. My great-grandfather wanted builders, not just owners who know every nail, every beam, every stone. This is ridiculous, Margaret snapped, climbing to her feet. I'll call our lawyers. Your family's name is on exactly 30% of the ownership records, I replied calmly. Want to see the original partnership agreement? The one your great-grandfather signed after James Chase saved your family during the Depression. Howard approached with another folder. Copies are right here, Mrs. Wellington Pierce, along with board meeting minutes confirming the Chase family's majority control. But everyone thinks we own the building, Margaret said weakly. All our circles, our charity boards, our club. Ah yes, I nodded. Your social status built on assumptions. When was the last time you read the building's financial reports or visited the families in the rent-controlled units? Rent-controlled? Claire said quietly. Another Chase requirement, I told her. 20% reserved for teachers, nurses, working families. Your mother has been trying to remove them for years. Margaret flushed. Those units lower property values. The Wellington Pierce name means nothing without the Chase family's investment. I finished. Also found letters between our great-grandfathers. Letters reminding yours that real worth comes from what you give to the community, not the name on your invitations. The construction crew began their work. Then the sound of drills and tools filling the penthouse air. Each noise making Margaret flinch like a sharp pinch. Each reminder that her perfect world wasn't quite what she believed. The garden club meeting she tried one last time can be held in a building's community room. I suggested the one your family converted into a private spa, which by the way is being renovated back into a community space next month. Clarouched my arm gently. You've known about this all along, even when she treated you like the help. I smiled. My father told me the truth after our engagement. said it was time for the next generation to take control. But first, I had to prove I understood what real ownership means. By working as a janitor, Margaret's voice dripped with disdain. By learning every job that keeps this building running, I corrected her. Something the Wellington Pierce family forgot to do somewhere between charity galas and social climbing. Howard cleared his throat. Mr. Chase, the inspection team needs access to Mrs. W. Wellington Pierce's private elevator shaft. There are some concerning struck issues. My private elevator. Margaret looked horrified, but that's my personal, is part of the building's infrastructure. I finished firmly and currently not up to code. You'll need to the main elevator like everyone else until repairs are completed. The main elevator? She pressed a hand to her chest. With regular tenants, with doctors, teachers, firefighters, Andes, construction workers, I confirmed. All of whom have as much right to be here as you do. More actually, since they didn't try to block essential safety work. Claire was studying the building plans spread out on the marble counter. These renovations, they're not just about safety, are they? No, I admitted the Chase Family Trust has some specific requirements about modernization and community access. Requirements that are long overdue for implementation. Requirements like what Margaret Mann did, like converting the private spa back into a community room, opening rooftop garden to all residents, not just penthouse owners, installing a children's playground in the courtyard. A playground. Margaret looked faint. But noise, the property values will reflect what this building was always meant to be. I said firmly. Not just a status symbol, but a community, a place where people of all backgrounds can live and work together. And if we reface these changes, Margaret lifted her chinly. I pulled out one finale document. Then the Chase family trusts us the right to buy out the Wellington Pierce shares at market value. And somehow I don't think your family can afford to match our offer. The color drained from Margaret's face. Y'all wouldn't dare try me. I met her gaze steadily. I spent 2 years watching you treat hardworking people like they are beneath you. Watching you try to push out families who've lived here for generations because they don't fit your social image. That ends today. Claire squeezed my hand. Mom, maybe it's time to remember what great-grandfather Wellington Pierce and Mr. Chase built together. A partnership of equals, not a social hierarchy. Margaret Wellington Pierce's perfect world was crumbling faster than the plaster the construction crew was removing. She sank back into her Italian chair, watching as workers tracked dust across her, imported marble floors. The annual Christmas gala, she said suddenly. The one where we showcased Wellington Pierce family legacy. It will still happen, I assured her. But this year, every resident is invited and instead of celebrating false legacies, we'll honor the real story of two men who built something together. One with Mooney, one with vision, both with respect for honest work. Claire had been unusually quiet, processing everything. Now she looked at her mother with new understanding. This is why Dad always seemed uncomfortable at family events, isn't it? He knew the truth. Your father tried to tell me years ago, Margaret admitted softly. He said we were living a lie that the Chase family could expose us any time. I didn't believe him. I couldn't believe that our social position was built on unborrowed glory, not borrowed. I corrected, shared our Greek grandfathers were true partners until your family started believing our own publicity. Started thinking fee were better than the people keep this building running. Howard approached with another set of documents. Mr. Chase, the inspection team needs Mrs. Wellington Pierce to sign these access forms. Margaret stared at the papers like they might bite her. Harrison Alwendald. Maybe it's time you started handling things yourself, Claire suggested gently. Actually learning about the building you live in, that people who make it work. I wouldn't know where to start, Margaret whispered. He pulled up a chair across from her. Start by attending the next residents' meeting. Not as the queen of the penthouse Buddha is a member of the community. Listen. Tell their concerns, their ideas, to residents' meeting. She looked scandalized. But that's for everyone. Woe calls this building home. I finished head firmly, including the families in their controlled units. The maintenance staff and yes, the construction workers who will keep this place standing. Claire sat beside her mother. Mom, remember when you first moved here as a young bride? Before all the social climbing and status games, Margaret's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. I used to have coffee with Mrs. Rodriguez from the 10th floor. Her husband was the building superintendent. She still lives there. Howard offered makes Thebes Trevlis cake for the holiday potluck. The one you stopped attending 5 years ago. A tear escaped Margaret's scarful makeup. I got so caught up in appearances and what people would think while I stood up brushing constructionist from my jeans. Now you have a choice. Keep living the lie or help us restore what the Hamilton building was meant to be. A place where everyone belongs regardless of their job or social status. And if I choose wrong, she asked quietly, then the Chase Family Trust will exercise its buy option, and you can explain to your social circle why you're moving to a smaller apartment. Claire shot me a look. Jack Nonke's right. Margaret surprised us both by saying, I lost our way. Forgot what really matters. She stood up, smoothing her designer suit, and did something I'd never seen in 20 years of knowing her. She walked over. Tough construction crew. I apologize for trying to stop your work, she told them, her voice shaking slightly. Please do whatever needs to be done to keep our home safe. Diego, my foreman, touched his hard hat respectfully. Thank you, Mrs. Wellington Pierce. Would you like to see the structure uplands? Understand what we're fixing? To everyone's surprise, she nodded. Yes, too. Think I would. As Margaret huddled with Diego over the blueprints, Claire slipped her arm around my waist. You could have told me, about towning the building. I wanted to earn my place here, I explained. Not through my family name or money, but through actual work like my great-grandfather did. Is that why you still wear work boots to black tie events? That, I grinned, is just to annoy your mother. Some habits are hard to break. We watched as Margaret asked questions about support beams and safety regulations. Actual listening to the answers. Maybe there was hope for the Wellington Pierce family after all. The Christmas gala Claire missed with everyone invited. It's going to be quite something. Yes, I agreed, picturing Mrs. Rodriguez's treff cake next to Margaret's imported champ. It's going to be exactly why this building needs a reminder. Strength comes from what we build. Tug of not what we pretend to be. As if to emphasize the point, the sound of construction filled the penthouse. Not just noise now, but the symphony offer of necessary change of walls coming down to build something better. Sometimes, I reflected, the most important renovations aren't the ones you can see in blueprints. They're things that happen in people's hearts when they finally understand that true worth isn't built on names or social status, but on a foundation of honest work and genuine community. And if it took a construction worker who secretly owneth building to teach that lesson, well, my great-grandfather would have appreciated the irony. If you've ever been judged for your job or background, drop your country. You'll understand exactly why this moment mattered.